are you doing? I'm not going to say good morning, good evening, or whatever, because that I need to say that 24 times, because when you're watching this at any time of the day or night, it could be morning, evening, what have you. But just hello. And we'll just go straight in. We'll just ask the panel today, what did you have for breakfast, and what constitutes breakfast? May?
Oh my gosh, what did I have for breakfast? I had really strong coffee, which is the number one. And then I like eating quite a lot, but I don't like, I still sort of like to sort of keep reasonably trim. And the way that I eat quite a lot is, and this gives you energy, and it really is quite smart. A really good grated cheddar cheese and grate some carrots. Mix them together, have a very nice olive oil, a little bit, and
Carrots and cheese?
Grated cheese and grated carrot together.
Wow.
The trick is to have a really nice presentation, a really nice bowl or sort of something. So you make it...
So you're eating with your eyes?
You're eating with your eyes.
Most people do them.
Okay.
So that was my breakfast this morning, my mountain of coffee and my grated cheese and carrot in a sort of Japanese sort of bowl, sort of whatever. And at the same time I was listening to Santana.
Wow.
Nice and loud.
Is that luxurious breakfast?
That's nice, that's nice.
Graham, your breakfast?
2 coffees with milk, no sugar. A bowl of muesli with cut up apple. Perfect for the morning defecation.
Muesli and apples.
Except that because I've eaten something bad, I think, on the Sunday, it hasn't really helped with the stomach ache. So even that good defecation didn't actually do the job, because it's still painful. So I realize it's food poisoning from earlier. But
we always forget what we take in has to come out somewhere.
it has to come out.
Either physical energy or...
Yes.
Yeah.
I have helped in polluting the waterways of this great nation. River sewage.
Shaz, what's your breakfast like?
Well, I literally just had my breakfast now. I broke my fast with 1 orange. That's my breakfast.
So how long was you fasting for, or going slow?
While I was sleeping.
Was that 12 hours?
Well, apart from, I woke up at like 7 this morning, so I've continued the fast until now. So yeah.
That's really stretching the May, jump in there.
And you haven't had coffee?
No, I don't drink coffee. I don't.
Oh,
drink
you're
any form
amazing.
I don't drink any form
I
of
thought the
caffeine.
world didn't revolve unless there was like
No.
really strong
When you've got a
coffee
2-year-old
to
that wakes
liberate
you up
everything.
every morning and keeps you going from the minute they open their eyes, and you don't need coffee. Trust me.
My breakfast tends to consist of what I usually have for dinner, which is like...
I do that sometimes, but today wasn't one of those days that I did that actually. I usually do that.
Have you been to these buffets and they go... Huh?
Buffet.
Yeah. What's the difference?
Said buffet.
Warren Buffett.
What's the difference?
You pronounce the T's.
One sounds slightly posh and one sounds sort of entertaining.
Buffet or buffet?
Buffet.
Buffet.
Buffet sounds very like a muppet.
Buffet.
Puppet.
Je veux
Buffet.
une buffet.
Yeah, but that's French, not English.
Well, yes, that's what, because buffet is French. It's a French word that's borrowed. Buffet.
It's borrowed.
It looks like
along with the rest of the stuff England's borrowed. Yeah.
You say potato.
I wish.
And I say potato.
Right. You say buffet. You
say buffet.
But it
we say buffet.
it doesn't matter because like everybody knows that, you know, it's like some people you say when I was growing up there was only a tiny little shop and they had basically 2 types of cakes, and lots of people would say I'll have that gattox please instead of ghetto.
Oh, ghetto, yeah. Yeah, well, some people really pronounce the letters in their words, which I tend to do sometimes. You know, because you have words like mojito, but it's spelled with a J, mojito. So, you know, a lot of borrowed words, as Graham put it in the English.
Mojito!
Yeah, and who speaks the Queen's English?
The Queen.
The Queen.
Yeah, the Queen.
God save our
Nobody
Queen.
else but her.
I agree with you. And as we go up north and
Can
live...
Rob and Rees-Mogg speak a little bit of the Queen's English?
Who?
I think only one person can speak the Queen's English.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a logic there, isn't it? Right, but as we go up north, right?
Jacob's Rees-Mogg speaks in a way which is
You see, I don't mind if people have different accents at all.
fine.
But you see,
Yeah, well, you
It's
have an
what-
accent,
it is
so
what
you would
they
say that.
It's what they say,
Mm.
rather than how they sort of say it.
If
really.
someone's
Yeah.
got a thick accent,
what about the
and
Brummie
I-
accent?
Yeah,
And
I
the
can't understand you.
Yeah.
I find that quite annoying.
Yeah.
To be fair, like a lot of the time you get calls from call centres
Mm.
and they tend to be from maybe a lot of the time up north. And I'm talking to them, I'm like, sorry, what did you say? Like genuinely
Yeah.
trying to hear them and
Yeah.
understand what
Yeah.
they're trying to say.
Yeah.
But genuinely, just
Yeah.
an accent
Yeah.
can even cause
Yeah.
communication
Yeah.
barrier.
Yeah.
Like if you're not used to that particular accent speaking.
And this north and south divide, okay, one of it is language, right? And we're going to go straight into one of our subjects here. And is it that people in the north has voted for Boris Johnson? And with the current situation, do you think that, have you guys checked up on the current situation?
Which is
Not particularly.
Graham Philomin,
Well, I don't know. What
Boris's
question.
current situation with Parliament, and has people lost confidence? He's taken advantage of the people up north, and he's now sending down the.
I think that the Rupert Murdoch and the right-wing press need to help Johnson out, because the mask has fallen off with this corruption that shows the nasty, toxic Tories that they've always been. They've never been anti-establishment, they've always been the establishment, corrupt, devious. But the divide and rule tactics, what is called, they call quite cleverly the culture wars, or which is basically the old divide and rule tactics, right, need to be brought into play. So it's about time to use the xenophobic card. So maybe an attack on the EU with a protocol, or maybe a phony trade war or something. That seems to that might cover up the corruption scandal. So it might be. I can see that coming up quite
All
soon.
right, we're going to get back to the scandal. All right, let me just give an update to some who haven't been keeping up. And last Wednesday now, I was almost physically sick, right? And the reason why I was almost physically sick is because there was an MP who was judged by an independent... Owen Paterson, right? By his peers, a panel of his peers, of being guilty of corruption and wrongdoing, and he was going to be suspended for 30 days, right? And then Boris...
Just 30 days.
Huh?
Just 30 days.
Just 30 days.
Yes.
But here's the rest of the story.
It's a very weak standard.
Right, here's the rest of the
already.
story. That didn't make me sick. This is what makes me sick. So Boris Johnson decided to tell all of his MP, this thing called the whip, right, that they're going to vote to overturn the committee
Yes.
that actually sanctioned this MP for 30 days, and they were going to do a review on that MP's 30 days, right? In fact, they were going to do it today. But what has happened, so the vote went through and they decided to overturn the committee, put a hold on the decision because it's going to get reviewed, right? And within 12 hours, a lot of the MPs, a lot of the public, and including me, was convulsing. This to me was the total breakdown of society, they go conquering the world to this thing called committees and what have you. So after 12 hours, right, that MP decided to resign. there was one or two MPs who decided to not vote for that. They were sacked.
Really?
Yeah, and then 12 hours
No,
later,
that
Why are you
is
so
interesting.
surprised? Why are you so
Well,
surprised?
Well, because it adds to the turmoil. You would sort of think that any sort of thinking government would try, for their own sake, to begin to minimise rather than maximise the
and here lies the question, have we got a thinking government?
A
What is
thinking
that?
government?
Hmm?
Have we got a thinking government?
We
We've got
have
a
a
stupid
right-
government.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
I don't know
another
about thinking, because like we discussed in another episode, where do these people, that make these decisions go to get their education? What kind of backgrounds do they come from
Eton,
to make these
Cambridge.
decisions? Do you go? I'm trying to say, like, what way in have you ever lived in poverty or worked in certain places? They don't come from a background where a majority of society lives a certain way. They don't live like that. So for them to make decisions on how a society should live, considering you couldn't live like that or you wouldn't live like that, it just speaks for itself.
There have been great discussions. You see, this morning, I've
But
actually...
I would like the question for me, right? We know there's a rise in populism. The far right have pretended to be the far left. They pretended. They've never said they were. They claim themselves to be anti-establishment, but they've never claimed to be anti-capitalist. They never claimed to be anti-millionaire. So they claim to be against the forces of old, the establishment. And what they meant is maybe the standard bearers of liberal
Graham,
democracy, like the BBC and the universities.
Graham, I'm totally confused, but let me tell you something I saw a few days back with the leader of...
Yes, it is confusing.
Yeah, the EDF, what's his name? Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
There was a clip, not so high profile. He went to Milton Keynes. He went to a chicken wing shop in Milton Keynes with his family, with his children, and they refused to serve him, right? And he decided to get his mobile phone out to say, "These people are not. I've come here to eat with my family, and these people have decided not to serve me." And they managed to...
They might, but because he's it's very dangerous, because it's possible there is something on the media called Red Watch. I've seen myself from there, and there are pictures of people who might
they consider,
some of those people get attacked later.
They consider them as enemies, kind of thing.
But
Yeah.
the thing is that this has how have the far right ideas now fallen into the mainstream? There are no longer ideas from Searchlight that are in the minority, that they become normalised in terms of Trump's America,
Professor Gray,
Erdogan's Hungary.
we're going to get back to you. As Shaz was saying about living a reality for some people, I think it's like more like 75% of the people, especially the people down the north, right? Now, the thing about the leader of that party there who they didn't serve is that I was saying to myself, now he knows how it feels when a black person gets turned away from a premises.
Tommy Robinson.
Tommy Robinson, right?
Who's this guy? The white guy that's meant to be a bit racist. Is this the same?
Oh, he's head of the he's head of the sort of new the extreme,
National Front.
right? So as Graham was saying, these are like the two extremes. But funny enough, him being expelled from this restaurant is like the same as the minority, like us black folks, when they don't let us in. You know, we come in, we're fully this and that and the other, but still they don't accept. So he's feeling those two extremes always come together. But as Shaz was saying, and as over the commentary, one of the commentary over the weekend was somebody should say that because of the scandal, someone should say that the MPs should just have universal credit, right? And they should do their job. That way they would know what it's like
To be a normal citizen.
right, and remember your 20
And live below your means. Live below your means.
20
That's what they want
pence
people. That's what they
bonus.
want people to do. Live
And-
below their means.
and you see-
Deliberately.
Yeah, and you see that £20 a week they're taking away. I believe like the increasing cost this year, next year, it's going to add up to about £1,000.
But the thing is,
some Tory MP actually say in a very self-pitying way that it's not possible to live on a certain figure, which was astonishing. When over the expenses scandal, I mean, the thing is that just a while ago there was a Tory MP who actually said it's not possible to live on a budget of
the second homes business. I mean, that was originally brought in order for MPs who had limited means to be able to come and participate in government. Whereas before it would be only if you had your private income that you could sort of. So the Labour Party brought in the idea of being able to have a second home, and that's sort of.
And also expense for your staff and people.
So the idea, in a sense, was sound, but it's the abuse of
people in power again.
So I mean, really,
people abusing their power and doing what they want and taking money.
The government have basically the people's money, so they should be accountable for the people's money.
Not only that, we pay taxes, and we have no say on what the taxes we pay get spent on. We don't get to choose. They take our taxpayers' monies and go to people's countries and go to war. Like, that's not what I want to pay for. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But that is what our taxpayers' money contributes to stuff like that.
What are you going to say about it? Me, I know you got ideas about people power.
I sort of think, when you mentioned war, the thing that I had on the radio recently is that up in Scotland, the big talking shop.
COP20.
Yeah.
Oh, the global warming, it's COP26.
It is packed full with representatives from the various sort of energy companies and whatever. And what I sort of thought is interesting, they make no observation that you would sort of think that the arms and ammunition, which is one of the biggest industries, they must have representatives. Because I mean, ammunition and the manufacture of the whole arms machinery is one of the greatest polluters.
Yeah, go on, Shaz. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, basically, with all of that, you're talking about artillery and going, like I mentioned, going to war, taking out. I just think that we're just so past this people governing business, like especially people that don't, like you said, 75% of the people live probably below the poverty line. Do you get me? I'm not going to quote me on that because I ain't statistical, probably right. But what I'm saying is you've got a large proportion of people. Not only that, you've got, alright, they go to war, they've sent people to fight their wars. These people who have come back, I've seen documentaries in England, they've come back from war, homeless, nowhere to live, nowhere to go. This is people that fought our country's war for us.
The
and if they don't have no regard for the people that they've sent to war, Britain, then obviously they don't have no regard for the other people.
I don't know the statistics, but I have noticed intuitively by just looking around and asking that I think a slight majority of people on the street are ex-soldiers.
You see?
And they're very psychologically damaged.
This is another thing, because it's like when people go to war,
and they don't know which way to turn around. Many of them used to be very right wing. Many of them were they went out there very right wing and very patriotic. And that's the funny thing about the patriotism.
This is the thing.
It's a very funny thing. They've been used.
Yeah, they have, and they don't realise until it's too late. They go to war, they realise that the war that they initially thought that they was going to fight wasn't even the war that they was out there fighting. Not only that, you're killing innocent, what's the word they use for them?
Oh.
Insurgents.
Oh.
Yeah, insurgents, which means civilians. Yeah, so basically you're out there killing,
Collateral damage.
innocent people and using words like insurgents. A lot of people probably at the time when they was using words like this didn't even know what it meant. So they're thinking, oh well, they've killed another group of gang members or criminals or whatever you want to call these people.
That's where racist ideology comes into play, because
These are just
Europeans
innocent people being killed.
Europeans are shown as names, you know, Peter Frederickson, James Bottomley, Mary Johnson. They are shown, right? When men and women in Afghanistan are shown, they are just shown as a group of people, and then they show a picture of one Islamic fascist terrorist, right? And then they show another picture of a village, and it looks very confusing. And somehow, unconsciously, it's all conflated. This group of people, this amorphous mass of people who are either all Muslim or all Hindu or all dark-skinned or all Afghan or all tribalistic, or it's an amazing that this carries on in this day and age, this very cruel ideology, which is used in divide and rule.
What follows
Divide
what?
and conquer, yeah.
You would sort of think what follows what? Is it the manufacture of arms? And then in order to continue manufacturing arms, which is a big money spinner for governments, for individuals, for whatever. So if you have the manufacture of arms, they have to be used somewhere. So you almost have to manufacture war. Now, if the arms it was reversed,
The military-industrial complex.
Manufacture war, I like that. Excellent.
What May said is really true. They manufacture wars. But the thing is,
when manufacture enemies,
they
to use the weapons against.
But then what we have to also remember is the people that they claim to go and fight war against as enemies were also once people that they was in cahoots with. Do you understand me? Like Gaddafi, who's is it Hussein?
Saddam Hussein.
The government was in cahoots with these people before they went to war with them. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So again, it's just what May said. They're creating something, creating enemies, creating wars that don't need to happen. And really what it comes down is to conquer and divide. Okay, you're not going to agree with us and you're not going to follow suit. So we're going to come and take what we want and take over your country. That's all it comes down to. We don't want to apply it to
very often when
and yet the common denominator is people. There are people in every country.
Of course, they don't care about that.
And people are essentially need the same sort of things. I mean, most people want peace. They want to enjoy being alive. They want to create.
But that's a human right.
Yeah.
That's everybody's human right
Yeah.
to live in this world, be free and live in peace. That is everybody's human right. And as we know, our human rights have been they've been trying to take this away from us right under our noses even now as we speak. You know, like this is what they're trying to do under people's noses.
You mean the erosion and the attacks on the European Convention of Human Rights, which was actually created after the Second World War and has nothing to do with the EU at all. In fact, Winston Churchill was one of the signatories. So now it seems that Johnson and the new populist far right want to use the Donald Trump playbook to erode and denigrate human rights, to be able to live in a corrupt society like Viktor Orban or Poland or.
But we already live in a corrupt society. Like I don't understand.
Well, it can get more corrupt, and in fact,
it can get more corrupt than what it already is.
And back to corruption. Back to corruption. The 36 million pounds, not millions, billion pounds that was used for track and trace, right? Oh. All of a sudden, this money has disappeared. This MP that was suspended now resigned. Part of his corruption was that he actually was working for one of the companies who were actually one of the producers of the vaccine, right? And do you notice how they pushing
Oh, both companies were from Northern
For
Ireland.
example,
One, a meat company and this medical company. Yeah, and he was Minister of State for Northern Ireland. So he can invite them, give them a contract. They give him some money. Yeah.
Legitimately, as a consultant.
I remember that this Owen Paterson is nasty for all sorts of reasons. I remember when there was floods in but he's very climate. He's one of the climate skeptics. And when there were floods in the West Country, in a very flat area called there's a flat area. Right.
All right, go on. Tell us about it. What you said?
Somerset.
Yeah.
There's,
was it when
Somerset levels, and they flood often.
And there was an avalanche.
And he said that it was God's punishment for sin because he's very anti-gay. So we threw a lot of things together. Now this maniac, right, is been an MP in rural Shropshire for 32 years, and. This man who was basically just a very rich person who worked in the leather industry, who made a lot of money through leather.
How does he get voted continuously in?
$1,000 question. Please let me know. I'd love to know
what it is.
I want to know why the victims are victims, not why the bullies are bullied.
It's the same reason you said the soldiers went to war believing in certain things, right? People vote because they believe in certain things. That's
Patriotism. Yeah. And
tradition.
The thing is, patriotism is a thing. I just think it's stupid because I just think, me personally, like, what's there to be patriotic about? Yeah, I'm British and I'm born here. That's it. Like, that doesn't mean that I have to be like, oh, God save the Queen and really, fighting for my country and oh, England's going to do this and oh, we don't want these foreigners coming in our country, because that's what patriotism really is. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It comes down to a little bit of even racism. That's how I look at patriotism. Let's make America great again. To me, that's patriotism and racism in one.
Can I introduce some etymology here? The patriotism is a Latin word. It was patria. The idea was created during the Roman Empire. Patria morte. It was on the signs of the Roman.
Oh, you and Boris Johnson are good friends, aren't you?
Patria. Exactly. We're Latin friends, and we're connected through the Emperor Justinian. Now. Patria, right? But we look at the word patria or nation, the nation, which in that sort of pre-feudal era was really not what we call the annually defined nation state. Patria and patriot and words that come from the root word patria are also very interestingly linked to patriarchal, ruled by male, ruled hierarchies, governments, and powerful leaders, Caesars, kings.
Right. So
you then begin to think of Margaret Thatcher as being matriarch rather than patriarch?
No, I see her as patriarchal.
Right, and going back to last Friday, which was bonfire night, and it's still a confusing. I'm still confused what the reason they were trying to do. But that was last Friday. So next week,
you're doing no research.
I'm a bit lazy, but don't worry, I'll start doing
horrible
it.
histories.
Yeah.
Go for horrible histories.
Horrible history. My daughter likes that.
Yeah, they're absolutely lovely.
It's pants.
Yeah, lovely.
They've tried to throw a lot of black history in there now. So yeah.
But patriotism. So next weekend, next we're gonna have the at the Cenotaph in the West End, the soldiers, and do you know in Brixton at the same time they have it's called the Windrush Memorial, and you're gonna have members of the Commonwealth soldiers, and going back to what you're saying, Shaz, it's only recently they've actually paid acknowledgement to the black ones, the one from India, the one from Africa, the one from the Caribbean. We had Black RAF man.
Yeah.
We had the whole
We've
list.
done so much as people, but they've covered it up and hid it away. And it just makes you think, again, you know, we was invited here to work here, to help fight their wars and all of these things. And then, you know, it was still like, oh, well, you know, we're not going to shout too much about these people. You know, they've done us good, but we'll just keep our shush. But obviously now, the time's coming where a lot of information is now floating above the surface. So, yes, Google stuff, do research, because information is out there.
And then look how they treated us.
Look how they still treat us.
Right, so they call it Windrush. And there's still people who haven't got their full compensation yet.
Still people, they still sending
They
people
might
back to the
get it
Caribbean.
after they die.
They are still sending people
They
back
might-
home. People that have been living here for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, going back to a country which they are strangers
we
to
have
now.
somebody here who is part of that.
It's ridiculous.
They might.
Oh yes, I know who it is. I know who it is.
They might be
yeah.
offered
Yeah.
compensation after they die. And then, by the way, seeing as they've died, there's no point in giving it to them, so we can take it back.
Yeah, and
They
let's,
weren't giving it in the first place, put it that way.
right now this patriotism
Well,
and,
right-wing people would say, but that's just your opinion. But then they talk over shite.
and this underlying structure, Shaz, you was asking what, or somebody was asking, what's the underlying structure? I mean, we'll probably go. All right, let's move on to this subject. Then we're gonna move on to it. When they say Asian, when they say South Asian, when they say black, what's you guys' interpretation of it? Anybody jump in?
What do you mean, what's your interpretation?
I always find it curious.
Asia and Asia.
No. The black. When the word black or whatever. I have to leave it completely open, sort of thing.
I'm going to say something.
Collect their own. It's for other people to distinguish that. Yes, I'm black or whatever.
I'm going to jump in because I think that out of all of races of people, for some reason, black people seem to be named the most different names over the years. Yeah, we've gone from being Moors to coloured, Negroes, nigger, black. You know, we've had so many different terminologies of names over a consistency of years and centuries. And it makes you think, why is that?
All right.
Why is that?
Now, I could go deeper into the meaning of black in relation to me, but we're going to go straight over to the P word and that big controversy. Have you guys heard about it? The cricket thing?
Oh, the cricketers, yes.
Yeah, the P word. As you say, you see those negative derivative. So
Well, I
that
went
P,
to school in Bethnal Green, so that was a very word that I was very familiar with, written in a predominantly Asian area as
Well,
well.
can I tell you a personal story of that was just brilliant? I was in the Oval Cricket Ground in one of the matches, maybe England or New Zealand, right? In the John Major room. And I saw for the first time a famous cricketer. He was going to be given a golden bat. And he was retired, called Mike Gatting.
okay.
And I'm looking at him and I saw him and then I tried to remember where I knew him, well, the name from, right? But then I noticed when he was like hugging the stewardesses in his octopus-like way and making them feel rather uncomfortable, but they had no choice, they had to be accepted. And I thought, right, this is the Mike Gatting of when I was maybe in my 30s during the anti-apartheid struggle, when I was out every Friday and Saturday singing and chanting outside of the South African embassy.
In Trafalgar Square.
And we were asked to go to we were asked to go and demonstrate against the rebel South African cricket tour by Mike Gatting. And I didn't know anything about cricket, so I'm outside. And we're at the group outside. There's a group inside. I only saw that later on television where they ran across the the pitch with the sign, Mike Gatting. And I remember us singing, Mike Gatting, stop batting for apartheid. Because, you know, they're lefties and lots of sloganistic type things, almost like children. So that's, so it stuck in my head, that's the name. Now, I remember being taken over to Paddington Green Police Station, which is very, very heavy, and I remember being, you know, like chanting inside the station, right? Being taken inside and given a couple of punches, and then I shouted out, and the person outside of me, outside the thing, happened to, in the City of London anti-apartheid movement, happened to be a barrister, or solicitor, made a mistake, solicitor. So when he called out, then that was the thing, and then I was charged with, I don't know, obstruction, or I was charged with something made up. So I had to come along, and then when I was like a week, I came along Christmas with one or two other people, right? And just before Christmas, right, for this obstruction card, both state magistrates came along there, right? And you know, the colleague who was also solicitor in the City of London anti-apartheid movement was there. And walked in, I'd never seen him before, was a Mike Pierce, was a Patrick Pierce, something who was a really big barrister, a top guy. Mansfield, sorry, Mike Mansfield.
Mike Mansfield.
He's got his suit, and he always wears this very long suit.
Yeah.
He walked in. Anyway, this was brilliant, right? The judge was really embarrassed, right? It was unbelievable, right? And all the policemen, the policemen happened to be having some were ill, and one of them happened to have their Christmas dinner. So I was starting to laugh, right? And I got a kick in the shins, right? And I realised I wasn't meant to do this.
So you're in court.
And I was
Mike
told
Mansfield.
that I could go, but if I carried on being abusive in the court, right, that the cases were dropped, but I would be had for to death. Well, so the solicitor, right, gave my wrist a big squeeze because I didn't want to apologise, and I said, "Oh, I'm very sorry," and then went out of there. I shook hands with Manfred. He went off, and that was that. And I thought, Christmas dinner.
So you've always been the same person you was.
But it was funny. But no, because
this time the judge.
I saw him, Mike Gatting. I actually saw him there.
All right, now back.
And he grabs with me like octopus.
Now back to that story there. This is where there's a
Rebel Cricket Tour. He was given a golden bat. Rebel Cricket Tour.
Yeah. All right. Now listen.
And I'm standing behind like this, right? And I'm in the back, but I'm in the background with the other stewards, and I'm like that. And I thought, this is so paradoxical. This should be a play.
This is the history.
This should be a play or a film.
I know, that's the history.
This is wonderful.
Some of those places I was to.
My Gatting, stop batting for apartheid.
But here's what, back to today now, right? So what it is that
Cricket.
the whole board has resigned. The South Yorkshire board has resigned.
Well, that's not cricket, old boy. What about Norman Taggart's cricket?
Yeah, who will you bat for? Who do you support when you... Yeah.
Cricket score.
The sponsors has pulled out, right? There is a cricket presenter, which they've pulled from broadcasting, right? So the whole thing is kind of crumbling. This is my card here. So it's now accepted, right? They've had reports and they've chucked it in the corner and what have you. Eventually, this cricketer has persistent, and it's out there now. So the board has resigned, sponsors has left, right? And there's now a realization of this systemic, historical racism. But here's what: for those Indian and Pakistani players, right, who never got the chance in their early days, right, of earning so much money and having a future, there should be a class action because their lives have been destroyed from day one because of this systemic historical...
Easier said than done, because they, behind the seat, a lot of people have to make up their decision. Do they put their neck above the parapet? Because remember, a lot of nasty things can happen to people. Lots of people don't put their heads above the parapet because they are in sticky situations, standing on one leg, and that's why things don't seem to change. So the few cases that come along, I mean, I remember in Birmingham marching round the roads in Birmingham for the Birmingham 6 and being hated, and we were so scared. We got a coach and coach back right from London, and we were really scared, and those were the days when those people were hated. That was before the campaign that to get them out. You know, maybe a lot of people would clap if we did that now, but there were 6 of us, and it was very, very scary. I saw the hatred on those people's faces, right? And I was scared, and we wanted to get on those coaches and get out, right? I was really glad that the police were stopping them, otherwise we would have been beaten.
One of the longest journeys I ever had was to go down to Bradford. I think it was the Bradford 6.
The Birmingham 6.
No, Bradford. There was Bradford, Birmingham, Guildford, the Iron, the Guildford. There's been loads of miscarriages of justice, systemic historical racism. But are we this post-pandemic or these pandemic times, right? We see the police, the institution of the police, right, still has not crumbled, but there's so many big cracks when it comes to women, ethnic minority, right?
Patriarchy.
All right, these post-pandemic times or these pandemic times, is this a time for change? Is this a time for a new
Did we think so? Remember during that time we were locked in our homes, right? And we listened to the radio, and we heard about the talk about change and working together and a new thing, and we thought that when things got better, not disappeared, but it's still there. And I had my jab on Friday, right? So we thought that, you know, COVID hasn't disappeared, but it's look, we're in the twilight zone. It's got better. And we thought when it gets better, there'll be an understanding about the environment, about looking after people, about the need for medical welfare, about the need for helping people in the third world and giving them the extra surplus supply of jabs so that this pandemic wouldn't go on forever. The need for kindness and togetherness. And I was actually, right, I admit I actually fell for it. I was thinking, yeah, maybe there will be some understanding, but oh goodness me.
Shaz, how do you see this?
Here we are again.
This pandemic, this virus, this third jab, this corrupted thing. Oh, vaccine passports. Oh, the NHS women and men, the NHS people, are they being sacked for not? The care workers have left.
I don't think they've been fair.
Alright, Shaz, what's your views on this
Me
nonsensical, as however you say it?
I'm an anti-vacciner, so I don't believe in the vaccines, and I believe, again, taking people's human right to decide whether they should or want to take the vaccine is, again, taking people's human rights away. Because now, I know I've done my own research on vaccines, what's in them, and a lot of people don't. That's fine if you trust the government. Now, since the pandemic, me personally, I have no reason to trust the government ever again. Not that I had, put 100% trust in them before anyway. But after the pandemic, I feel like they've just shown incompetency after incompetency, especially having someone like Boris Johnson running the country. Me personally, I feel like it's disgusting what they're doing to the NHS workers, putting the mandatory vaccines on them, because again, as we know, at least 60% of the people, the care workers, hospital care assistants, are majority black and Asian people. Yeah, and we are also, again, the same people that are least wanting to get vaccinated. So I find that this is another way to kind of enforce it. They done a whole documentary on Channel 4, I think it was last year. The BAME community, black and Asian community, are the least vaccinated, and they want to know why. When you look at the history of what black people's had to endure, whether it's through medication, experiment, you know, slavery, the things that have been done to us over the year. Are you really surprised that people of colour do not want to go and get vaccinated because of the history
Can
of
you
things?
explain about the Tuskegee experiment?
Again, it's the same thing. The syphilis, all of this.
Can you
They've
say
gone,
something about the Tuskegee experiment?
but basically, they've gone to countries and experimented on people.
No, this was in the United States.
That was in that. Yeah, that one was in the United States.
Well,
It's
can you
syphilis.
explain to them? It's very serious and not many people know
Well,
about
if
it.
you-
And
yeah,
it
you
makes,
explain
it
then.
makes many black people vaccine hesitant. No, because
It's
because
not just that as well. There's many other.
you
I
know,
mean, there's
you're
many
the
other
anti-vaxxer,
cases.
You need to explain.
Yeah, but there's many other cases.
not
Sarah
anti-vaxxer.
Bartman. Anybody know about Sarah Bartman? Another black woman who was experimented on years ago with no anaesthetic, no anesthesia. It's things like this. You know, these historical experiences.
Causing distrust.
There's a huge amount of numbers of black women going in to have birth, coming out dead, or you know, it's a high case in black women again. So it's things like this. When we go, like they say in America, the hospital is to women what the police are to black men, and that is the truth. Yeah, that's the truth about it. The hospital is to black women what police is to black men. Yeah. So it's not a place that black people really trust. You know, it's not a place where we feel safe as black people. So why are we being targeted and encouraged and forced to vaccinate? It should be everybody's individual choice and everybody's individual right to choose what goes on in their body with their consent and not without. That's how I feel about it personally. And that, again, like I said, a lot of people don't do research as to what's in the vaccinations, how long they've been studying, you know, are the vaccinations even working, you know, what are the side effects of the vaccination. People are just like, okay, I'm just going to go and get my vaccine because I'm going to be safe. Cool.
And May,
Good luck with that.
May, how do you see the
I've had mine.
situation?
Number 3.
Graham, we're going to come to you. May?
I sort of, it's not so much, I see it as a way of thinking, thinking in a sort of slightly roundabout fashion, that what you're talking about is health. The pandemic and all the rest of it, the whole negotiation is health, and I sort of feel that if we have to take the medical advice, true or false, according to your persuasion, that's fine. It should be that you are persuaded one way or the other, and nothing should be forced on you.
Right.
It should be persuasion. But I still sort of think that the real issue is how do you sort of have the best possible health for yourself, for your friends, everything, in mind, body, and soul.
But this is the
Don't
thing.
separate one thing from
You're
the
right.
other.
I agree, and this is the thing, because you know they're suggesting that everybody just get vaccinated and that's going to cure everything, rather than telling people, you know, eat healthy, exercise, get fresh air. Like, these are things that, you know, nature is provided for us.
Interact.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
No, they kept us locked down. We wasn't allowed to see our families. We wasn't allowed to go out. All the things that keep people on low vibrations. This is what they enforced. Yeah? You can go for a walk if you need to, you know, or you can ride your bike if you need to get to exercise. There's no encouragement on dietary requirement. Like, what are we eating that might be, you know, more healthy for us to avoid stuff like, you know, viruses or whatever. What are we keeping fit every day? Are we going for walks? Are we getting fresh air? Instead of sitting in front of a desk for like 7 hours a day in front of a computer screen. Do you get what I'm trying to say to you? So it's like people's environment, whether it's working, how they live, what they eat, what they're putting into their mind, it is all got to do, it's all what you may say, it's more than
True, the
just...
Tories haven't brought out the sugar tax yet because of the multinationals that
There is a sugar tax.
no, there's no sugar tax, no.
On what?
There should be a sugar tax on the tax on unhealthy foods to promote healthy foods.
But this is the thing, and
And the tax could be used for the
even
national
you say
service.
that, but the healthy stuff when you go anywhere is always more expensive than the crap. It's like a bottle of water.
Well, then it
it's
should
like
the taxation system could be used to make unhealthy foods more expensive, and healthy foods could be subsidised and made so in a kind of nudging people towards.
Yeah.
But you see, that's a socialist welfareism.
they're not promoting they're not promoting real health.
Socialism.
And the
You're
thing
talking about intervention through capitalism.
no,
Capitalists,
I'm just talking about.
They intervene when
That's not what I was talking about.
they have to protect business, to protect
That's
their
not what I was
financial
talking about,
interests.
though. That's not
They
what I was
otherwise they're hands off, laissez-faire, and they let people.
But it's interesting, you see like the privatization of the NHS, and then suddenly Boris says and Sunak says that we got to pay extra for the NHS. But slowly,
They're going to privatise it. I've been saying this for years.
It's already been privatized.
Yeah, I've been saying it for years.
And in bits.
I've been saying this for years. And then
whatever.
the thing is, again, that's going to be something added on again for us to pay for. Now we're going to have to pay for healthcare.
No, you won't pay for healthcare. You'll be paying for rich people to become richer, and you won't get healthcare. It's called divide and rule.
Conquering
You'll be
divide.
told that you'll be paying for healthcare, but you won't be. You'll just be paying.
But what if people believe that they can actually organize themselves in such a way that the idea that you're healthy is almost you take it for granted, that you are healthy 90% of the time and you are very rarely ill?
Yeah, but then the thing is, we can talk about physical health, but then what about mental health? Like, there's so many things that attribute to certain things.
You can't have mental health. I mean, it's the whole thing of the
Mind, body, and spirit.
has to go together.
That's
go
right.
Together. If
You've got to be feeding your mind, your body, and your spirit.
Yeah, if you exaggerate your
I'm an
mental,
atheist. I don't believe in spirit. I have to out myself here.
I believe in spirit. 90%
You
proof.
believe in spirit.
I call it emotionality because I want to own
Emotionality?
Is
that a
emotions.
word you made up?
Emotionality.
Yeah,
Is
that's
that a word you
spirit.
made up?
That's still spirit. That's still spirit.
Have you never heard of
Emotionality.
emotionality?
No,
Emotions. Emotions are inside my body. I don't project my emotions into the sky and then have them then projected back into me. So it's not something outside of me. I'm not a marionette like in most
But spirit
religions.
is not outside yourself anyway.
Religious
Spirit is
believers believe that they are marionettes that are told what to do from outside. What they're seeing is a reflection of their own self and their own sentiments.
You're talking about people that are religious, I mean.
And
I wouldn't say
yes,
spiritual.
people people that are believers in any external forces.
Well, I
Gods
feel
and demons and-
most spiritual people don't believe in external forces. They believe in their spirit, which is self.
Are you talking about Sufism, or are you talking about Gnosticism? You see, I've always learnt about the spiritual is a very funny word because I've often heard that word meaning the great God who sees and knows
Everybody
everything.
has different interpretations
And is infallible.
concepts of different things.
And it's usually to do with the rule of men as well, because I've noticed that most religions are very anti-women. And
Yes, I agree with that.
So really, I balk at this word because it sounds very nice, but I find that it always goes in a very strange.
Is the vaccine a religion?
What gets you up to dance?
Is the far right
Religion.
the far right anti-vax ideas put about like QAnon and Are they religion? Are they religion?
Graham, when you get up and dance and you like to dance,
Emotions.
you don't start thinking about the far right and the far left.
Is that right? Is the
Far
word?
left. Far right. Far left.
It's called a new dance.
Far left.
Give yourself a break.
Yeah, with
You're
the
not
far right.
thinking about this far
It's
right,
true.
far left thing.
Raise your flag.
You get up and
Everything
dance.
comes back to politics.
Raise your flag.
but still, Greg, we haven't heard your views on the current situation with the pandemic and the vaccination
Yay!
and the lockdown. What's your views on that? Vaccination, lockdown.
I think the lockdown was necessary until before the vaccine came along. I was inconvenienced, but I'm inconvenienced because I can't walk around naked when it's nice and warm. I get people getting, because we live in society, we get inconvenienced, and we can't live our lives through our own selfishness and say, oh, I'm inconvenienced because I can't do what I want, and therefore I build a theory around it to say that it's all some mystical conspiracy to stop people being free, because freedoms are often curtailed. I mean, we're not allowed to abuse other people, and that's not to do with the government, we're just not allowed to do it.
But the government's allowed to abuse people and abuse money and abuse their power.
Yes, of course. And that's what power is. Power allows people to abuse. Therefore, I'm a socialist, a secular socialist, that would like to reduce those inequalities and reduce that power. I don't see power disappearing. I hope we can minimise it to the point where there's not such great inequalities of power. But basically power is a problem, including religious power.
Inequality. Have you got a vaccine passport? You haven't got a vaccine passport?
I'm not for vaccine passports.
Can you get in
I'm for vaccines, not for vaccine passports.
Oh, but there's...
So what's the difference?
What do you mean, what's the difference? I chose to go on Friday. I booked my vaccine and I took my third jab. I chose to do it.
Passport.
I think it's a very bad thing to force people to have vaccine passports. I think it's a very bad thing to actually when Britain left the common market and was against the freedom of movement. So to actually need a visa to go into Europe. In fact, I don't like the idea of nation states at all. I think human beings should be able to walk around the world where they like. That's why gypsies are hated so much in all societies, because they cross borders.
Sometimes restriction is valid.
Yes, I'm not allowed to be rude to you, so I restrict myself.
In a sense of what though, mate?
If there is an epidemic of
COVID-19.
Yeah,
the government created, yeah.
I mean, for example, in farming. And,
Bill Gates.
There's a new swine. There's a new.
Yeah.
What, swine flu?
Yeah. And it's serious. It's coming. It's there. It's serious.
Yeah.
No, it's not
you have
serious.
to have.
People say stuff like this to make it more
in order to deal with something. Sometimes there is genuine necessity for and you have to deal with a problem. So sometimes you have to contain a problem in order to have an opportunity to deal with it effectively. So it's how it's
Do you think that the government dealt with the COVID effectively?
I don't think the government have dealt effectively with anything.
So do you feel that the lockdown was effective?
But that doesn't mean to say that there is
Yes,
a
to a certain
necessity.
extent.
No, I'm talking to May.
What?
Sorry, go on, May. Carry on, May.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think what you said earlier
To a certain
is
extent.
that's the thing that amazed me, is that with the pandemic there was no stimulus for people looking after their health and doing everything
Right.
and encouraging people to interact and
Mental health
and
as well
build
as
up their
physical
spirit
health.
and it happened naturally. People became generous towards each other. You could see people leaving this, that and the other. But the government, there was no stimulus from the government to sort of deal with anything other than in a very sort of like peripheral sort of way. No, I don't think the government dealt with anything apart from furlough.
Okay.
I sort of thought
Yeah,
was
that was quite considerate of them,
really,
innit?
really
To give people some money while they're off.
And taking homeless people. And also,
Okay, yeah, the homeless people.
homeless people
Yeah, and that
being
was
put in
very well,
shelters.
and that was well done.
What about? But you spoke about this another episode ago,
Very good.
and I was not all the homeless people. I
I don't know how I can say that the government Johnson did very good, but I've just
picking
said
or
it.
choosing.
Because you
But I did
probably
hear
have
about this. But I still
someone
saw a lot of homeless people on the street. So I couldn't understand, was there a lottery number, was there a lucky draw for the homeless or what? Because when I was walking down the streets, there were still homeless people still sleeping on the road. So I can't understand. I'm not disputing what you're saying, because I did read about the story about a lot of the homeless people were put in central London buildings and stuff that were empty.
all the hotels.
Right, me personally, right, with the virus, right, it's not over yet, right, and the swine thing, I'm keeping a very sharp eye on that. The numbers, from my point of view anyway, whether you believe it or not, it's actually rising. How did I spend the lockdown? I spent it in the park. Because that was the only.
Was that here when he was meant to be on lockdown?
No, that was the only place you could go.
Oh yeah, to the park.
Right. Oh, it was.
Or shopping.
Yeah, it was so funny. Well, it wasn't funny. This is real. In the beginning of the lockdown, right, we were allowed to come to the park and exercise. We had police on horseback. We had motorbikes driving around.
What, checking?
Yeah.
We didn't have that,
And I was lying in the park with some friends, right? And then the police was actually doing their patrol. And we started pretending to exercise, right?
Oh, that's funny.
Do you know, instead of exercise, do you know pretending to exercise is actually harder than actually exercising itself?
That's funny.
Right? But it isn't over yet. And if you want to catch up with how I spend the pandemic, you'll see lots of podcasts I did at various...
A whole load.
Huh?
A whole load.
All right, there you go. It was a long lockdown. It was a long lockdown. Right? And so I did a lot in the park. And in the early days, you could have gone to different places. So I went to different places and did it. But then we weren't even allowed to travel. You forgot, we weren't even allowed to take the bus. We were supposed to work at home. We weren't meant to leave our houses only for food and exercise, right? Do you remember these
And
two?
to go to work if you had to.
Right.
If you were on a bicycle though, you could whiz around.
Exercise.
Oh yeah, that's when I got my bike actually during the lockdown. Tried to do a little cycling and all that.
I remember a white gentleman in the park there. He says, I was out jogging, right? And the policeman pulled him over. He was and the policeman pulled him over. He says, you shouldn't be jogging here. Like, where you going? La la la. You shouldn't be jogging here. You should be over there. And then I turned around to him and I said, now you know how us black folks feel when the police stop you for no reason. And he was a school teacher actually. I had a nice little conversation with him and his family. So we were allowed to go out in the open. Remember the two women who drove to a place with a cup of tea and the police just arrested them, and then it had a big storm in the
Storm in a teacup.
in the papers, right?
Yeah.
Right. All right. Okay. Let me. These are really serious questions and good things to consider. All right. Let me kind of conclude. All right. We're going to start with May. May, how was your weekend? Was there anything exciting about the weekend? And is there somebody you want to give a shout to, like a business or?
Okay. Well, I had a brilliant weekend. We had it started on Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday in the evening here, quite a few really good guitarists turned up, and we had a drummer, guitarist, and we made music, and we had a Russian musician, and we played really well together, and it was absolutely smashing. And then on Sunday we had some more drumming here, and everybody got revved up and played together, and it was really nice to have music. The absence of language can sometimes clutter things, and music can sort of elevate.
Yeah.
And what do I want to... I can say hello to absolutely everybody who has a smile on their face.
Graham, anything from the weekend?
Did I say
Well, I did my sort of dance classes which I enjoyed, and big up to the people that I
Big
met
up.
there.
Graham said big up.
In it, lad, you know.
Get me
In
back.
it though.
And I also like that sing song. But some people, they don't sing in key.
Oh,
It sounds a bit painful for the earwax, isn't it?
Oh, okay. Well, my weekend was actually quite good. I took my children to see the lovely firework display in Alexandra Palace. It was very nice. And it was very crowded, very packed. And my children enjoyed it. And we came here for the Sunday session for drumming. And yeah, I had a good weekend, good start to the week. And I hope you all enjoyed your weekend too as much as I did.
Well, I had a few things. I'll just say with May on Saturday I was here, and the Russian guitarist and that jamming session on Saturday night was absolutely excellent, and it was a highlight. I will do in future be able to get some recording and actually put it out.
I saw the other side of you that evening. That crazy.
Oh, this side?
Good side.
Oh, this side.
No, I saw the childlike side.
Oh.
Well, yeah, the inner child. The inner child, okay, right.
Yeah.
Right.
The inner bonkers.
And one of the things
I actually always, I thought, well, I like the intellectual conversations, but I just thought you are a bit like normal. But that night,
you're normal? Your normal is not normal.
I just realised that you really are bonkers. So
like
thanks.
you, yeah, I know.
So I want to thank you for that.
Okay.
I found out that you're actually more bonkers than I thought.
Oh, more bonkers than you. Well, I can be. We're two bonkers. We're two bonkers in the same pod.
Alright, next time you sit next to Graham.
We're talking about fractions here. Mixed numbers.
All right. Now talking about music. So one of the things we have in mind is actually have artists come and perform just an opening number and a closing number as we actually do this. But one of the things about the lockdown and how things are proceeding, it's actually hindering me at the moment whether to go full speed ahead. And when things happen, it's like, when you're in the train and suddenly you hit the brakes, So rather than motivate people to come full speed ahead, I'm kind of jerkily going along. But that's one of the things, hopefully, as I was saying, so with the Saturday, that session was absolutely excellent. So
do you know that's the way Tories dance?
how does Tories dance?
Because they're all jerks.
All right, we're gonna sign off now, and from all of us,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
see you next time.
Hasta luego.
Oh,
Noite.
hashtag Red5599 TV. Don't forget, share it, tell your friends.
Telephone. Yeah.
Teleportation.